Reckon we can nail this first time this time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Famous last words. Right, let's go.
Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
Unbeaten over the Easter period, but a win followed by a draw sees United pop into and then drop out the top three. We look back on the victory over Tranmere Rovers and the stalemate at Walsall before looking ahead to the massive game against Northampton Town this weekend.
With a pass so true to Boulder Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run.
Yeah, mixed bag of a weekend, wasn't it, Mike? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, that's one way of describing it, I think. But it's still in our hands, so let's not be too downbeat about it.
It's kind of weird, though, because it's kind of not because of the games in hand. It's such a confusing situation. We can get ahead of Northampton, but Bradford can also get ahead of us at the same time. So it kind of just... It complicates things, I think it's fair to say. But, I mean, look, I think most of us, if you'd gone back a few months and said you'll get 4 points and not concede any goals over the Easter weekend, we probably would have gone, yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, I think if we beat Northampton, the draw at Walsall, sandwiched in between two wins, looks all right.
Yeah, and then obviously we've got the massive game in midweek next week. We're not previewing today, are we? We're going to say that because we thought at the business end of the season, you really need to be previewing every single game, and the context of that Stockport game completely changes depending on what happens this weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically. Plus as well, I think if we were to review two games and preview two games, it'd be a very long
I mean, last week's was ridiculous. I do apologise.
Yeah.
I kind of lost track. I'm trying to keep an eye on time, and it's something we're going to look at next season, how we can maybe tighten these up a little bit. I know a lot of people do like them quite long, but I think sometimes when we get to sort of the hour and a half mark, it's like, okay, this is getting a little bit silly, and we don't want to trim down the away fan chats because I think they're really useful, they're really interesting. But there you go. Anyway, let's get into it, Mike. We've got a bit of news to cover and all the usual stuff. First up, we, as usual, we tell you who's sponsoring the podcast this season. You should all know that by now, really, if you're regular listeners. As well as that, you should also know by now where you can subscribe to the podcast and how to get in contact with us. We'd like to say a big thank you to the Carlisle United Supporters Club London branch for once again sponsoring the podcast this season. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events, supporters games and fundraising for the club. This season they'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on all good podcast apps, whether it's Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast. Basically, search for the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and then when a new episode comes out, you'll get a little notification to tell you to download it and listen to it at your leisure. Also, if there's an option to review on any of those apps, please do so. If you can give us a 5-star review, that would be really lovely. It's a great way for us to get the message out about the podcast, and so more people can learn about it, and we can spread the word even more. You can also find us on social media, at Brunton Bugle, on Instagram and Twitter. If you go onto Facebook and search for the Brunton Bugle and click like as well, you can follow our page. We're also on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group, and also on the Buzz Is Back message board, the new message board that's replaced the Cumbrians.net. And also, if you want to drop us an email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Right, Mike, let's get into it. First bit up is the news section. There's only one real bit of news to cover here, and that's it's some awards and nominations and top 50 lists for United, isn't it? So, we're closing on what I think you would call is the award season, isn't it, really, for football? And United have received a couple of bits of recognition in two areas already, haven't they?
Yeah. Obviously, Simo nominated for Manager of the Season. When even is the sort of, when's it done?
I feel like the ceremony is the week before the last game of the season, I think.
Because for me, managers are judged on promotions and stuff like that. And it's hard to do it before the end of the season. Yeah,
interesting to see what happens. But yeah, so basically, as you say, the EFL have published their official shortlist for their end of season awards, and they've announced that in League Two, Paul Simpson is one of the 3 people up for the Manager of the Year award. The other 2 are Richie Wellens at Salford City and Steve Evans at Stevenage. I suppose Jon Brady might feel a bit hard done by having kept Northampton in the top 3 for pretty much the whole campaign. he might look and think that's a bit off. And I think possibly Dave Challoner might look at the job he's done and, getting Stockport off the table after a tough start, maybe be a bit disappointed. But I think it's sort of the context of the three managers that are up for it, isn't it? They've all come from quite similar backgrounds in the sense that they took over teams struggling last season and have taken them up to the top of the table, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. Whereas Northampton were kind of expected to do pretty well this season.
Yeah. So it's the context is a bit different, and I think Stockport as well with the resources they've got, and that's not to slight the job that Challoner has done there, but they were 100% expected to be right up there. And actually, the fact that they've only just got up there now is kind of a bit like, about time, really, wasn't it? Really. So there you go. So so Simmer is up for the Manager of the Year award. Owen Moxon, we all thought, he must be a decent contender to win the Player of the Season award. He's not in the three shortlisted for it, is he? So the three shortlisted for League Two Player of the Year are Andy Cook at Bradford, which it's not really a massive surprise, that is it? Top goal scorer, and he's having an amazing season. You can understand that. Sam Hoskins at Northampton, again, he's having a great season. Dipped off a little bit though, I think. Is it fair to say he's not really sort of hit his peak around about Christmas, and he's not really hit the same again? And Carl Piergianni at Stevenage, again, another one that if you follow most Stevenage fans on Twitter, they're all a bit like, he's not been that good in the last few months. So it's kind of a surprise. I mean, there's an argument Moxon hasn't been good over the last month or so, but up until that point, he's been excellent, hasn't he? So, bit of an unlucky one there for Owen. But hot on the heels of that, 442 have published their EFL top 50 players list, their annual list that they do, and Owen Moxon is in the top 50, isn't he?
Yeah, because I think this is done by fans, isn't it?
Well, it is, fans. Because we took part in this, didn't we? Yeah. So basically what 442 do, they go around a podcast or a website or a fanzine or a forum for each club. Now, it used to be the Companies.net forum. It was Dan that would arrange this. Obviously, with the Companies.net forum now closing down, the mantle's moved from that to the Brunton Bugle now. So collectively, between the three of us, we had a little chat, didn't we, basically? Because what they do, they say to you, can you give us your top 5 players, 1 to 5, in League Two for this season, but can you not include any of your own players? Yes, fair enough, because every club would put their own players in, would they really? So not really surprised. So basically what we did is we had a little chat, didn't we, in our little WhatsApp group we've got. And I think it was fairly straightforward picking the 5, wasn't it? 3 of them at the very least weren't that difficult to pick, were they? So I'm just getting the list up here because I sent it to John Coleman earlier today because he was asking me about it, basically. So number 1, having said what we did, because we actually came back with this about probably 2 months ago now. Cause they did
it was a while ago.
Carl Piergianni at Stevenage was number 1 for us. I can't remember if this was actually a 1 to 5 or just name your 5. I think it was 1 to 5, I reckon it. Carl Piergianni at Stevenage was number 1. Number 2, Lawrence Vigouroux at Orient. So we've raved about for years. Number 3, Sam Hoskins at Northampton. So I can't really grumble about him being in that list now, really, can I? Number 4 is Kyle Wootton at Stockport, and number 5 is Theo Archibald at Orient. We didn't put Andy Cook in because he's kind of like, he hadn't quite hit his heights. I think at that point, he's had this phenomenal couple of months, hasn't he?
It's like basically ever since we did that, he's been scoring goals for fun.
Despite us almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
And not that he knew who we listed, I think Wootton was the one we weren't. We almost went for Will Collar, didn't we? I think we were sort of.
Yeah, well, I think Wootton was sort of the opposite of Andy Cook, really. Wootton was in really good form around the time that we had to pick. So, it's one of them.
It's typical, isn't it? So Owen Moxon is 40th in the top 50 EFL players. He's the second highest League Two player. So the best League Two player this season, according to 442, is Sam Hoskins. There's 4 more League Two players that Moxon finished ahead of. And that's Andy Cook, I think, just slipped into the top 50. Paul Smith at Leyton Orient, Will Collar from Stockport, and of course Lawrence Vigouroux, the Orient goalkeeper. So well done, Owen, in terms of getting in top 50. I mean, it's a bit of a shame, really, he's not in the EFL nominations, but there you go. On to another one. So the League Two Young Player of the Year award, United didn't get any nominations in this. And having thought about it, I mean, I think Finn Back would have been a decent contender if he'd been able to stay fit, which, sadly we know those hamstrings just haven't been able to hold up, have they? Jack Armour, surely you can feel a bit hard done by him, Mike, can't you?
You'd think so, yeah. I don't know what more he could have done this season to push his way in. But you've also got to bear in mind as well, though, that there's team of the season. at the end of the season, so
Moxon
players might get recognition through that as well.
There's no way Moxon is not in that team, and if he's not,
Yeah.
there is something seriously wrong. I mean, I think there's a strong argument that Paul Huntington should be in there now, actually, to be honest, the way he's played recently, especially. But yeah, Jack Armour not in there. The three players are Junior, I can't pronounce his name, Chimenchen, or whatever you call him, from Colchester, Jacob Wakeling from Swindon Town, and then those two have had decent seasons, to be fair. The one that surprised me is Jaden Sweeney from Leyton Orient. He's played half as many games. He's a left back as well. He's played half as many games as Jack Armour. He's only got 1 assist to Jack Armour's 6. Armour's obviously chipped in with a goal as well, or 2 goals in fact. I just like, I don't get how what more he could do. He's the same age as Sweeney as well. I wonder if it's almost people think he's a bit older than he is. Well,
Yeah,
I know
think it might be
I know
that.
people look at his age and they'll have a list of all the players. But for me, he should have been on there personally. But maybe he just gets a bit unheralded for all the work he's done. But there you go. So Jack, you're probably going to win our Young Player of the Year award on the podcast, aren't you? I think it's fair to say. So, but we'll see. Obviously, once we get to the later points anyway. But there you go. Right, low watch time. Well, Max and Annan start there as usual, and it just keeps going and going, doesn't it, for them? Fantastic that run they're having.
Really, really great season, isn't it? Because, earlier in the season, they were sort of flirting relegation and people talking about Murph maybe getting sat there. And obviously, that kind of happens a lot at that level where teams do go up and down because they're not very big leagues. But, yeah, just a great season for them and a great season for him as well.
Yeah, so they're keeping themselves in those Scottish League Two playoffs. It's very tight. There's like 3 or 4 teams that are only 3 points between them, and it's because it's quite a tight league anyway because it's only small. But they beat Dumbarton, who was second place, 3-1 at home at the weekend, and that's a huge dent to Dumbarton's title hopes as well. But yeah, so they were the only side at the weekend though, other than bottom of the table, Albion Rovers, to win. So a brilliant weekend to actually get a victory. To be fair. That actually was Max's 30th appearance of the season for Annan. So really, really good there. I mean, he's probably going to end with pushing on toward, 35 appearances if they can get into the playoffs, 36 possibly, won't they? So brilliant first season for Max. And like I said, we really hope he gets a deal for next season because it'd be nice to see how he does with us as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Good offer, a bit of competition for Mellish and for Armour as well down the side, possibly.
Yeah.
You never know with these things, do you? Up next for the Galabanks is the home tie against bottom side Albion Rovers, so that's one they'd probably be hoping to get a result in, wouldn't they? So there you go. Lewis Bell and Gretna, 2008. Doesn't really get any better for them. 3rd consecutive 3-0 defeat. This time they lost at Gallifrey Dean, and that result confirms they'll finish 3rd bottom this season. It was another full 90 minutes for Lewis. There's only 2 league games remaining for them now, the first of which is a home game against Cumbernauld Colts this weekend. Sam Fishburne, though, a much better weekend for him in Morpeth Town, wasn't it? Because they were looking in real danger of possibly dropping into the... I thought they were clear relegation. I actually looked at the table again, and they really are in potential trouble. But they got a couple of fantastic results. He got a nearly full 90 minutes in both games. He got subbed in the 88th minute in the first game, where he scored a great solo goal, running with the defender and holding him off on a counter-attack and firing it past the keeper in a 2-1 win at Hyde United. And Hyde United are just outside the playoffs in the Northern Premier League Premier Division. So that's a really big result for them. And then they got a 1-1 home draw against fellow strugglers Marsk United, who were just 1 place behind them, albeit with a game in hand. So yeah, that puts them in a... Not a bad position, really. I think this weekend they've got a trip to Belper Town. Belper Town are already relegated in their bottom of the league. So that's probably one they're looking at. I think, right, get a result here, more or less safe, basically. They put themselves in a good position to survive. So yeah, good stuff for Sam. That's it. 25 appearances now and 5 goals in his spell with Morpeth. Kai Nugent, what a great weekend for him and Workington, wasn't it? I mean, fantastic. They officially secured their playoff place for the end of the campaign. First up, a 5-0 win over Witton Albion at Borough Park, which we'll talk about a bit more in the X-Files section later. And Kai got his first goal for it. It was if you haven't seen it, it's a nicely taken volley. It does take a deflection when it goes into the net, fair that wrong foot's keeper, but he's really good technique to strike it. And then it was followed by a 3-1 win at Kidsgrove Athletic. I think he was subbed in the second half against Kidsgrove, but I'm pretty sure he played the full 90 against Witton. But But yeah, fantastic stuff. 2 games left for them as well. They start with this weekend's trip to 1874 Northwich and then a home game against Cole. And I think, because I don't think either of them are in playoff contention, I think they've got a good chance of finishing second, which would secure them the home tie in the semi-final, but also the home tie in the final of the playoffs, which is a big, big thing, because obviously they're only one-legged playoffs in non-league, aren't they? So it'd be great if they could do that. So yeah, 10 appearances and 1 goal so far for Kai at Workington. Dan Hill, mixed weekend for Dan and Clayton Moore. They picked up a point at South Liverpool before they were defeated 3-1 at Runcorn Town, and that result consigns them to relegation and bottom of the table finish, basically. Dan played the full 90 in both games. They've got a double header before the weekend. They face Hull Crawlboys on Thursday evening before a trip to Garstang at the weekend, which is the final game of the season. So, yeah, not great stuff for Clayton Moore, but it's good experience for Dan. He's getting game time. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. Right then, Mike. On to match review time. 2 games to cover. Let's start off with the big game at Brunton Park. Carl United 2, Tranmere Rovers 0. Pretty comfortable, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the early goal really helped us settle our nerves. And great crowd as well. Fantastic crowd.
Yeah, we'll talk about the crowd in a bit more detail later. But yeah, it was fantastic, wasn't it? Yeah, in terms of that, really gave the team quite a lift. For this one, I've just realised I didn't write down the details of the team selection for this one, but I'm pretty sure it was 3 changes, wasn't there? I think from the game against Orient, which obviously saw Barkley coming in for Feeney, Ellis coming in for Back, and then I'm pretty sure Dennis came in for Garner in this one. I might be 100% right.
I think so.
That rings a bell. But anyway, yeah. So, solid changes. I don't think anyone really grumbled about the team when it was announced, did they? I think most people expected Ellis to start. I think.
Yeah.
Subs as well. Pretty happy with who was selected there. And yeah, as you mentioned, Mike, it was just a brilliant start in terms of couldn't have asked for much more. I mean, I'm going to say one thing. Why on earth is another team playing out from the back against us all the time? I can grasp you doing it a little bit, but every single time it was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and the players were clearly not comfortable, especially their keeper. They were not comfortable playing it out from the back, and it was us putting them under pressure that ultimately got us well, both of our goals.
I think it was both the keeper and Turnbull. Turnbull did not look at. I mean, Turnbull's one I've never been that 100% convinced by. I know he's been at a few bigger clubs, hasn't he? I think, but it's never one that's really sold on me. But he basically, it was Patrick sort of poked and won the ball, didn't he? I think it was in Moxon maybe, and it came to Turnbull on the edge of the box, and instead of putting it into a position where maybe. What's his name? The keeper. Sorry, I've got to check his name out. Hewelt. Yeah, so that he could maybe boot it out with his left foot or something out of play or something like that, or even like put it across and maybe play it across goal the other way. He put it right into his right foot, didn't he? It was a horrible pass back to him, and
But he still could have just shanked it out. Like, do you know what I mean?
But if their philosophy is to pass it out, then you should be put in a position where he can control it with his left and then maybe try and pass it with that, or even then shank it out with his left. Even with his right foot, that was going to be an awkward shank out. I know Howley did actually a very good one in the second half where he side-footed it out between 2 defenders, didn't attackers even, which was really smart thinking. But yeah, just ridiculous. And Hewelt basically plays the ball straight to Patrick, sets himself, gets into the box, and Dennis is not going to have an easier finish all season. I can only think of the goal at Salford that was as easy as that, you'd say. Basically tap in from he literally just stood still, didn't he, on the 6-yard box, waiting for the ball to come and side-foot it in. Yeah,
but I mean, it's brilliant awareness from Patrick to know that he was going to be there as well, and I think you get that because Dennis and Patrick have played quite a lot of games together now.
Yeah, definitely, and he almost seemed embarrassed to celebrate, didn't he? Dennis is like, I can't be celebrating that. That's far too easy of a goal. The second goal though was much better, wasn't it? Really, in terms of quality, a bit more challenging. So good little bit of link-up play between Ellis and Patrick down the right. Play back to Moxon, sets himself, great cross to the far post. And a bit rare for him at the moment because his deliveries are a little bit off, but it was a brilliant ball in. Armour does fantastically to get in the back post and get above his man, nod it down. And then Dennis is just Johnny on the spot, isn't he? Ahead of his man, fires it into the roof of the net and 2-0. And that was game over at that point, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, while we're moaning about Tranmere playing out from the back, They did have a couple of sort of decent little passing moves, but there was just nothing in the final third. They never really looked like getting back into the game at all.
Mike, look at this. Look at the stats, right, for them.
I know, 63% possession.
But no, the bottom one, pass success.
Oh, yeah.
79%. I think that's the highest of any team against us this season. But when can you think of Holy having something to do in the game?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be fuming, absolutely fuming if I was the Tranmere fan watching that. I just nothing at all in attack. They offered nothing. It was embarrassing at times. I mean, in terms of other major, first half we could have had 4 or 5 really. I didn't even sort of think about it until I got home and watched the highlights. It was ridiculous how many chances we had. I mean, there's one that you mentioned, that Dennis snapshot. We were right behind that, and that just bent at the last second, didn't it? So
yeah, it maybe just came off the post a little bit. But yeah, but at the same time, I think we didn't really get out of third gear for it, and we didn't need to.
We didn't get out of really third gear in the first half, definitely. I mean, we despite that, we dominated chances. They had one chance with Hawk sort of dragged it wide from long range, but I mean, there was another one where Patrick ran into the area and beat a few men and had a low shot where I think he really wanted to get into the far corner, but he just couldn't get out of his feet.
It was a good save from the keeper as well, to be fair. That
it was a decent save, that one. And there was another one, the one where Patrick was clean through on goal as well, and that's when the keeper actually did really well and came out quickly. But Patrick there again, he set himself. You knew what he was going to do, but it's like you've got to play this shot a bit earlier. He left it just that second too late and gave the keeper a chance to block it. And then Dennis had one to clear off the line as well. I mean, and also the one where the keeper hit the ball straight at him and he just couldn't quite get him. You know, he controlled it, but he couldn't really do more than slide a shot in, could he really? It was straight at the keeper. So, yeah, it was like one of those ones you go into half time and you think to yourself, oh, God, if we'd been 4 or 5 up here, Tranmere would have had no complaints. You'd expect them to come out a bit stronger second half, and they were slightly better Tranmere, but, I mean, yeah, from a very low base. And the truth is, we did not get out of second gear second half. We didn't exert ourselves any more than we needed to, which was really good game management, to be fair. I mean, there was a couple of chances for Devitt from the edge of the box, one that went wide and one was straight at the keeper. There was the one where Armour did really well on the overlap and played a low ball in that Dennis was sliding to come to, and the keeper actually did quite well, didn't he, to get it clear.
Yeah, I have to say as well, I think Simo must have been listening to last week's podcast, because what I was saying about you need one midfielder to sit in front of the defence and the other two to get forward more, that's exactly how we played. And second half, I think Guy came off and it was Moxon who was sitting, which, you know, because I said you'd like to see him get further forward, but I don't mind that. I think when the players have clear roles, and it was Devitt, like you said before, Devitt really getting forward and causing problems. He looked really, really good.
Yeah. Ellis did have a chance as well. He was played through on goal. Lovely little free ball from Moxon for that one. I do look back at it and think to myself, should he have played a low ball across for Dennis for the tap in? It would have been tight because I think the defender might have got to it, but he went for the shot.
It's one of them. He's a young lad in front of the Warwick Road, and we're already winning comfortably. I think he just saw his name on the back page of the News and Star.
Yeah, probably did, didn't he? There was a couple of chances for Tranmere. One from Mumbongo that was straight at Holy fairly easy, and then there was another one for Chalmers who sort of flicked the ball past the far post very late on, and that was it really, wasn't it? There wasn't a huge amount to shout about for Tranmere, and yeah, we went home pretty happy at the end of it. Right, should we have a 6-second review, Mike?
Yeah, go on.
Regan's done us one. I wonder what he'll be saying at the end of this one.
Yeah, what a day down Brunton Park. Unbelievable crowds. I always feel like a conspiracy theorist, but it felt like there was a lot more than there was. I don't know how you'd get another kind of like 4,500 in. I guess it's 3,000 if the away end's full, but it seemed like there was a lot more there. But brilliant day. We went down to the fan zone and stuff before, and it was just class to see. So hopefully there's a lot more of that to come from the club. The game itself was pretty easy, to be honest. Like, Tranmere knocked it around a bit, but I've said it before, like, they're just one of them League Two sides where it's just possession for the sake of it. They weren't really going anywhere, and the times that they get up to Kane Hemmings, they looked like they were going to threaten, and I thought in the second half they were going to get back into it, but they just didn't really create anything. Obviously, Guy coming off, hopefully it's not too bad, but I don't think there was any need to keep him on, really. The game was won. It didn't look like they were going to get anywhere near into us. So yeah, class day and shag is shag, and it's as simple as that. Up the Blues.
Well, we were waiting for that, weren't we? There you go. Thank you very much, Regan. Pretty comprehensive report on that, wasn't it, really, I think? And, yeah, the Guy bit was probably the only one little worry in the game, wasn't it, when he came off at half-time? But obviously it turned out he was fine. He played at Walsall. Came off again in that game, but I think that was just a case of trying to freshen things up a little bit, wasn't it, really, with them being down to 10 men as well. So yeah, no, it's just... Yeah, all round a good day, really. And, Tranmere probably the most toothless side I've seen this season. And I include the likes of Hartlepool and Rochdale there. They offered much more threat than Tranmere ever did, didn't they, in those games? So Tranmere probably just lucky they had, Mickey Mellon did such a great job with such a poor-looking set of players, really, doesn't it, really, in a strange set of circumstances. Talking points, let's do a few before we move on to the Walsall game, Mike. Yeah, Dennis the Menace back in action, wasn't he, for this one? And, he's had his little spell out the team. Apparently, he wasn't very happy about that, he says, in a good way. You want players to be happy when they're out the team. And so we just wanted to refresh him. And I think we probably saw the benefit of that in this game, didn't we? Because not even just his goal, his all-round play was very good. And actually, his all-round play against Walsall was quite good as well, even though he didn't really have any clear-cut goal-scoring chances. His involvement in the game was decent, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And as well, I touched on it before, but his understanding with Patrick, and was pressing them like there was no tomorrow. And they just, their defenders did not have a second on the ball to think. And both of them, they just seem to have that understanding a little bit where they know where each other are going to be. And they look like a really good strike partnership.
Yeah, this game definitely, especially, I think Patrick looked, I think you said he thrives on big crowds, didn't you? And I think you saw the benefit of that this game. You could really see he was really, getting up when he got the ball and attacking. You could see him really, he lifted him a lot, didn't it? Yeah,
well, the Tranmere fans I was speaking to on the train on the way home as well said that they thought Patrick was like our best player, which, it is interesting, because, for me, no one really played badly, but I would have sort of said Dennis and Barkley as well. He was outstanding. But yeah, it's just interesting sometimes how the opposition fancy it.
I do wonder if that's a little bit of an overhang from last season in the game down there, because he was excellent against them there as well, wasn't he?
Maybe
come from that possibly. Barkley bonus. This was enjoyable, wasn't it? Ben Barkley. He's had to come in and out of the team all season. He's had to wait his time quite often. But he's come in now, and he's probably, bar the Stockport game, going to start all the remaining games as the right-sided centre-back. And he got man of the match, didn't he, from the club for this one? And hard to disprove it, because actually I thought second half, you think maybe you'd give it to Dennis, 2 goals and possibly, 3 other good chances where he did well. But I thought especially second half against Mumbongo, who looked a big threat, he had a bit of pace about him, he could get about. I thought he had an excellent game. He dealt with him so well. I don't know what your thoughts were on him.
No, definitely, it was fantastic, and because we both sort of said, maybe play Whelan, because Whelan, can play against Stockport, whereas Barkley can't. But I think, plain and simply, Barkley is a better defender, and you want to be playing your best players in this running. And he plays it out from the back well. He's one of them players who seems to have more time on the ball than he does sometimes. But yeah, just a good player. And for me as well, because you'd maybe be thinking, maybe you kind of want Stockport to go up as well. But there's absolutely no doubt in his commitment to getting us up this season. No doubt at all.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Jack Ellis had a great game as well, didn't he? There's the impending sense of doom in the way I say that, isn't there, really, when we got into the Walsall game. But, throwing him straight back into the start 11, having been out for, since he came back briefly, didn't he, in February, whatever it was, and fantastic. What a great game he had as well.
He played a part in both goals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just... I think he's going to have a really big future in the game. I really, really do. And I hope we can get him tied down a bit longer, actually.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the summer. I think we've seen it before where players play 10, 20 games and then big clubs just swoop in.
I don't think he's quite there yet. Partly because I don't think we 100% know his best position yet. He may well end up being one of those centre-backs, but you never know. Finally, before we wrap up this bit, Mike, and we've just got to sum it up. What do people always say, when you get a 5-figure crowd?
Yeah,
we always fail to do it against the big crowds. Yeah, in that
voice as well.
Yeah, that voice as well. Let's get a line. Let's put that line in the bin now.
Yeah.
Because the last few times we've done it, take away the MK Dons thing, we've actually played really well.
But not just at home, but we've had some really big away followings that we've turned up for as well this season.
Absolutely. 13,000, including, got to say, very impressive 700 from Tranmere, you know.
Yeah.
Probably arguably the noisiest fans we've had this season, which, when you consider how crap they were, it's a terrific effort, really. And, you know, I hope they can sort themselves out soon.
And as well, you know, none of their fans have Carlisle as a novelty ground for them. They'll have all been many times before.
They have, and the amount of Tranmere fans I'll see online saying they'll be gutted if we go up because it's their favourite away day of the season, because it's great pubs, easy ground to get to, you know, you can do it on the train, no problem, as we know, coming up most weeks. So yeah, it's our third, that attendance is our third highest ever at fourth tier level. Didn't quite beat the Torquay game. I think it missed out by about 20, didn't it? Something like fourth. It was either 20 or 40. I think it missed out by a bit, being the second biggest. It was never going to get the biggest, which was the game against Workington in the 60s, which is like 16,000 odd. But yeah, fantastic. And I just really, if you happen to be one of those people who went and is listening to this, who don't go normally, get yourself down for these last 3 games.
Yeah,
because they're going to really need us to get behind them now. Because it's, you know, we'll say it in the preview section, got 5 big cup finals coming up basically, and that's what we need. We need performances in those games to get us away from there.
There is one more talking point that you haven't put down.
Go on.
The Paul Huntington tackle.
Oh my word! You know what? I haven't put it down because I looked through the extended highlights, and the extended highlights disgustingly do not show that. Possibly because maybe they have an 15 certificate on them or something, and you know you don't allow that. But I mean, so this was a wonderful moment. So this is basically a moment where a ball comes loose, and the Tranmere lad, what's his name? I can't remember the name of the lad. He had to come off not long after, didn't he? Let me dig his name. I can't remember who it was. I think it was the number 6. I'm just loading up the match report, which I've got here somewhere. So, Chris Merry. Yes, Chris Merry, the number 6. The ball comes, and it's probably, I don't know how far away would you say it was from him. Maybe 5 or 6 yards, maybe a little bit more. Okay? I'd
say the tackle was probably about 70-30. Not
it was
the Tranmere player's favour.
Because people were saying it's 50-50. It was not 50-50. Paul Huntington's not even in shot on the on the camera when he first comes up, and so basically the Tranmere lad, because he suddenly turns and sees it, Paul Huntington straight away sees the ball's coming out. So I don't think it's a case of the Tranmere player not reacting quickly. I think he reacted as quickly as he could, even though he was nearest. And the two of them, right, we're going for this ball, and they go in, and fair play, neither of them pulled out, and neither of them made a meal of it. Because the Tranmere lad could have easily thrown himself about and made out he was bad injured, which he probably was injured because he had to come off. And yeah, Huntington won it, and the cheer when that went up, and the celebration he did as well, that showed that yes, the big crowd's behind us. So fantastic! Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I just the excitement, you know, because it's 2 games ago now. I'd completely forgotten about it, but there you go. Right, let's move on to the Easter Monday game then, Mike. Walsall 0, Carl United 0. 7th 0-0 draw of the season in the league. That's a little bit frustrating, that, isn't it, really? When you think, if you only have to nick one of those 1-0, and we're up in 2nd place right now, or 3rd place.
Yeah.
That's
it is frustrating, but, you know, draw your away games and win your home games and you'll be up there. But yeah, I mean, this one was there for the taking, really. Yeah.
Just for reference, the games we've drawn 0-0 this season: Mansfield away, a game where we probably could have nicked it, actually. I think we were probably marginally the better side. The Crewe home game, which wasn't a great game of football. I don't think either team was particularly great in that. The home game against Walsall, again, not a great game of football that either team really deserved to win. I've been written down before. Sorry, I've lost these all now. There's the Bradford game, the Stevenage game. How am I up to now? I'm up to 4. Wimbledon away. Again, fairly equal game. Walsall 1, and there's another one I've completely missed out, which is somewhere in there, I think. No, can't remember it. We'll just have to. Someone will probably remind us. But yeah, so basically, it's not. You don't look at those games and think, actually, in most of them, we've really badly missed out there, do you? Other than maybe that Mansfield game and maybe Stevenage, we probably could have nicked. But these ones, even this one, even though with them being down to 10 men for half an hour, it was a fairly balanced game, wasn't it? I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it was. But I think perversely, you know, and we'll go into more detail. I think it's one of them games where the red card actually did the opposite of help us. I think because Walsall maybe wanted to win it before the red card, but once the red card happened, they just were going to cling on to a point with with their lives, basically.
I think cling on to a point's a little bit harsh there, because I think what they did is they played very smart in that, and they didn't take too many risks in open play, but they made sure they got as many throw-ins, as many corners and free kicks as they could, because they realised that actually they're fair. With someone like Manny Monte in there, that and even Jamil Matt for the brief period he was still on after that. They've got some big lads in there who can cause problems, and actually a few of the set pieces that we dealt with them all right in the end, to be fair. But they played it quite intelligently. I think it's fair to say they're very streetwise. They were a much better side than Tranmere. Let me say that, a much bigger test than Tranmere from pretty much from the kickoff. They had a chance, didn't they? So straight away you're like, all right, that's more than Tranmere managed for most of the game, really, at the week on the Friday. So yeah, it was kind of. It's kind of one of those ones you look back and you think, you probably will think at the end of the season, it's going to be one or two things. Either that was a massive point, actually, we didn't do anything stupid, we didn't concede a goal, we got a point, great, that's helped us towards going up. But then you might look back and think, if you miss out by a point, we really should have taken some of those chances late on, shouldn't we?
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? But I feel as well, we should have played the ball around a bit more with the red card. We tried to sort of lump it over the defence. And the thing is, when a team's had a player sent off, they still have the same number of defenders, really, because I think they took off Matt for Riley, I think.
Because it's interesting, because we actually kept Patrick on for quite a bit after the red card, didn't we? When you look back at it, he was still on for another 12 minutes. And I wonder if maybe if the red card hadn't happened, he might have come off a few minutes earlier, like a few minutes after when the red card was given, because he wasn't really getting to the game. And I think Simo thought, right, down to 10 men, this is maybe a chance to get him going. In terms of team selection for this one, going back to the start on it, no real massive shock that there was no changes. The only real concern was Guy, with him coming off obviously the weekend, on Friday, sorry. But as it turns out, he was fit enough to play, wasn't he? So no major surprise. Yeah, in terms of chances, first half, actually, when you look at it, we didn't really threaten them a huge amount, did we? They had a few chances. That early volley from Wilkinson that went a mile wide, to be fair. There was a couple of saves for Holy to make. One from the free kick, which, when I watched it back in the extended highlights, they made out as if, I suppose it does look like a bit of a spill, but that doesn't really give the perspective behind goal, does it?
No.
You couldn't really see it, to be honest. So he actually did well to palm it away from the attacker, really. And
as well, with the state of that goal mouth, you're going to struggle to catch it, but the ball could go anywhere when it hits the ground.
So, I mean, most of the pitch was okay, but the goal mouths were absolutely appalling. It was just a sand pit, basically, wasn't it? So he did the right thing and just, when he was bouncing that right in front of you, just palm it away and got it away from danger. And in terms of the other things, there's only one real major incident for us in the first half, and that is the penalty shout.
Yes, which, having seen it again on Pitchside Blues, it was a stonewaller for me.
Yeah. I mean, I can get why people maybe are not sure when they watch the normal highlights, because it's slightly out of shot, the initial contact. But what happens is Dennis clips the ball over, and Alma does brilliantly to get ahead of Tom Knowles. And as he's been doing a lot of that recently, getting into the box, as Simo's been asking. And he's basically got a header on goal. And a free header on goal, and there's every chance he's going to score it. And Knowles pulls him back and trips him up, and he goes down. And the ref told Simo after the game that there was no pull and no contact. I'm not being absolute. We'll talk about the refs and officials in a minute.
Well, if there's no pull and no contact, book Armour for diving if you're so sure.
Exactly, that's what baffles me. Really, you should really have booked him. Had Armour already been booked at that point, though? I wonder if that's maybe the reason why I can't remember.
I think he had been, yeah. And that was something as well that set the precedent, that booking, for me. Because it was very soft, and
he didn't give that many bookings, but he just constantly giving free kicks, wasn't he? It was just really spoiled the flow of the game. But yeah, nailed on penalty. He should really have been a penalty. I know they had a shout in the second half, but watching back, the guy basically sees a foot dangling and just throws himself down, doesn't he? It's pathetic, really. But yeah, they had an early chance in the second half, Walsall, that sort of, it looks better than it did, because Holy sort of throws himself towards it, but he had it covered, didn't he, really? He was going wide for a corner, as it was in the end. And then the red card. Now, when we saw this in real time, Hayden White's obviously sent off, former Blues defender, there was kind of like a feeling of like, that maybe looks a little bit harsh, doesn't it? From the angle we were, it didn't look that bad. I don't know what you thought, Mike. You sort of sat a few seats away from me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was that bad. And having seen it again, I'm still not entirely convinced. I think...
For me, the pitch side blues footage of it is what shows you that it is a red card. He comes right down with his studs. It's the ball's well gone. Armour's clipped it away, and it's not a good tackle at all. It's only the second worst tackle I've seen Hayden White make. To be fair, after the one at Portsmouth. But yeah, I think for me, once you see the other angles, it's a stonewall red card for me. I don't think you could really put it this way. I don't think there's anything in that footage that's going to suggest that they're going to win an appeal on it. So that tells, and usually if it's fairly obvious it's a bad decision, it gets overturned these days. That's never getting overturned in a million years. So yeah, and obviously put them down to 10 men, and yeah, it was frustrating. There was a long period where we just struggled to really get into it, didn't we? We were taking our time, and I can kind of grasp that, but we just couldn't really create the chances, as you said, Mike. We were just too tempted to go long quite often. And
well, it's one of them. You say we didn't create the chances, but actually watching the highlights again, we did create a few, and we
very
did
late
get,
on. Though,
yeah, and we did get the ball into some decent areas. But I think, obviously I brought my partner along who doesn't go very often. I think and her footballing input, she doesn't know the most about it. But I think she said after the game, if Walsall had another player sent off, I still don't think Carlisle would have scored.
Yeah, it just felt like one of those days, didn't it? Gibson had a long range effort that we were all getting very excited because you can hit a decent one from long range. Ballooned it well over the bar. The best chances came from sort of out wide left, didn't they? So the first one, Devitt done really well actually to sort of force a corner on the left hand side, and for once, because he was near the ball, I think they were just like, you take it, because Moxon's corners didn't really create much this game. Very disappointing again, sadly. Devitt takes it and he finds Moxon unmarked about 8-10 yards out, maybe
less than that, I think. Yeah, I think it's just at the edge of the 6-yard box.
And for me, he gets up too early and gets over it and heads it into the ground and straight at the keeper. And it's like one of those ones, like, if he just stood still and hadn't jumped and just nodded it, he probably scores there. Completely unmarked. And that was like, just one of those moments. And then, Dennis did some great stuff down there. Dennis did a great little overlap, didn't he? He actually linked quite well on the left because he played the full 90 minutes. Played a low ball in that the keeper, for whatever reason, I think he felt like it was coming closer to him and panicked at the last second. Kicked out of his feet, and this sums up our luck. It goes straight at Alfie McCalmont and off him. He didn't even have time to react to it. Yeah. Straight towards the keeper. Either side of the keeper, it's a goal, basically. But straight at the keeper, able to palm it away again. Moxon then has a volley that goes well wide. And then the last chance, and this one for me, I don't know how he's not scored it. Basically, the initial ball in from Moxon's cleared out to the wing. Mellish and Armour link up, and Armour's ball in is perfect, absolutely inch perfect for Barkley coming in. Gets away from his marker, and Simo reckons the defender got a slight touch on the ball before it gets to him. I'm not 100% convinced by that. It's hard to, maybe you might see it from other angles, I don't know. But the thing that stands out for me is it's like Barkley takes his eyes off the ball. I feel like if that's Morgan Feeney or that's Paul Huntington, that's in the back of the net. Because they just power the ball into the net there. And he heads it and it just goes tamely wide, and then the final whistle goes. And it's kind of... that's the feeling afterwards, isn't it? It was kind of like a bit deflated. But at the same time, like you said, you've probably got to take the positives from it, don't you?
Yeah, and I think the fans on the whole kind of were applauding the team. Because, it wasn't for a lack of trying. But, I mean, one thing for me is there was a few times when we kind of had the ball just at the edge of the 18-yard box, and we could have maybe just had a dig, but we would sort of play it sideways, which I don't mind sometimes, but sometimes as well, you have a dig on goal. It might not go in, but the keeper might have to parry it out, or you might win a corner.
A goal like that as well, yeah.
Yes, something can happen. And I'm guessing that it comes from the manager's instructions, but I wouldn't have minded us just working their goalkeeper a little bit more.
To be fair, that's exactly what I said last week, wasn't it, on the pod? I was like, I want to see more shots from distance, and we're not. We saw it from Devitt against Tranmere. He had a couple, didn't he? And that's where I'm kind of like, that's part of me thinking maybe we need to get Devitt into the starting lineup a little bit more for these next few games. But
I've said all along, the thing with Devitt, and you've got it here, is that our decision making in the final third needs to improve. And Devitt is a player, all right, he doesn't have the legs anymore, but his decisions in the final third are always pretty much spot on.
We didn't mention it in the Tranmere game. He came on half-time in that match, and he was fantastic. The way he moved the ball so quickly, kept it ticking over, he kept it very calm. Perfect player to have come in that situation, wasn't he? Yeah, it's a frustrating result, but you know what? I think Lummy said this on Radio Come, and he's absolutely right. Come the end of the season, we might look back and say, you know what? We didn't do anything stupid in that game. We kept another clean sheet. We got a point, and we go again. And we might look at the end of the season and go, yep, that's the point that pretty much got us at promotion. With any luck. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that, won't we? But there you go.
And as well, I think that these clean sheets can, again, be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy going into these games, because teams know that we don't concede goals willy-nilly, so they know when they've got the ball against us, they need to be smart with it. They can't just gamble with it, which I think will hopefully help us keep even more clean sheets in the running.
Yeah, and we've got to mention the conditions as well were absolutely horrendous in terms of wind. When the Walsall keeper was kicking the ball high in the air, a couple of times it came right back at him, didn't it? It was ridiculous. Whereas actually, to be fair with Holy, it didn't come right. What you got the impression was he was only getting it to the halfway line sometimes, but he was still way further than the Walsall keeper did. And that's
there was a mad one. There was a mad one in the first half where their keeper kicked it, and I almost thought that because it kicked it forwards, but the wind caught it that much. I almost thought it was going to accidentally kick it into his own net.
Exactly, it was mad. It was absolutely mad. Do we want to talk about the officials in much more detail than we already have? I think the red card's the only decision he got bang on all day. It was just some of the decisions were just ridiculous, weren't they?
For both teams as well, to be fair.
100%. Like, he was giving us some throw-ins and free kicks, and I was like, what's he giving that for?
Yeah.
Just absolutely terrible.
But I think as well, while I say that the red card kind of made Walsall want to cling on to a point, not only that, but I think when the ref gave us the red card, if you like, he wasn't going to give us anything else.
No.
Be that subconsciously or what, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think Walsall felt aggrieved. They had a couple of really weak penalty shouts in the second half, but he just wasn't a very, very good ref, was he?
Yeah. Ellis's injury, big blow. Coming off after 20 minutes, and another hamstring injury as well. I mean, and frustrating as well, it's the other hamstring, it's not the one he had done previously, so...
Well, our mate Ian has noticed a correlation with these injuries, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, Ian pointed out that actually most of the bad injuries we're getting this season have come on opposition pitches. I can't think of a time when a player's done it at a home game. Someone will probably correct us on that, but I'm fairly sure Dave Mitchell's fantastic pitch, which looked like a snooker table, didn't it, on Good Friday. Considering he had 23 games played in it already this season, absolutely magnificent. What a service! It's just frustrating, isn't it? It's like, it's the fact that it's a right wing back that's getting injured. The curse continues, isn't it? And the big question, which we'll touch on in the previews, who comes in for him for the remaining games? Because I'd imagine that's probably his season over as well. So
yeah.
Touch and go, isn't it? Right. What else we got to talk about here? That pretty much sums it up. So we've talked about decision making needs to improve. We need to be a bit better on set pieces. They need to maybe change them up a little bit. They need to maybe just move the ball a bit quicker and that kind of thing. Let's just finish on some positives then, Mike, because we are wanting to be positive as we can. Got to look at it as a successful weekend, don't you? We didn't lose any ground, really. I mean, it sounds weird because we started it in fourth or fifth place, was it? I can't remember now. And we're pretty much where we were. It's just that Stockport, as we'll talk about in a second, just had a phenomenal weekend, and they're just like a steam train ploughing through the division right now. Defensively excellent at the moment, aren't we? And this is something that's getting a little bit overlooked. We were so good attacking wise for the first, until about 3 or 4 games ago. You kind of missed the fact that actually, in the last 10 games, since we lost 4-0 against Mansfield, we've conceded 5 goals in 10 games. And 2 of those were against Crawley in the 5-2 win there. So it's kind of like doesn't really make any difference, those 2 goals.
As well, that at Walsall was Holy's 18th clean sheet of the season, which isn't bad, considering that some of our fans think that he's the worst goalkeeper that we've ever had. So
it's just ridiculous. I'll talk about Holy in a second, but in terms of goals conceded. So if you take away that Crawley game, the 9 games, bar that Crawley game, we've conceded 3 goals. That's a big difference, and teams are going to look through their remaining season thinking they're going to be difficult to break down. And that's not a bad thing to be at the start of the stage of the season. When you start getting messy and conceding lots of goals, that's when you really start to struggle. And actually, someone else, I think CUFC stuff, put it up on Twitter, and they put up a table showing how all the teams have done since basically, I think it's the start of January, in terms of results. We're 3rd in the table.
Yeah.
So we've actually improved. People seem to think, we've had a dip off in the second half of the season. We haven't. We're actually better in the second half of the season than we were in the first half of the season. It's just this last 3 or 4 games, 5 games that's sort of skewed people's views a little bit, haven't they, really? But it's still there. The quality's there, so we've still got to believe. Yeah, Thomas Shirley, let's just mention him briefly. 18 clean sheets. That equals Kieran Westwood's record from 2007 and 8 and 2006 and 7. Actually, I think he did it 2 seasons in a row. He got 18 clean sheets. I think he needs one more to equal Dave McKellar's personal record, which is 19. So 2 more clean sheets and he'll be the highest number of clean sheets in one season from a goalkeeper. Like you said, considering some of the stick he got from some of our fans, actually I think as well, since that Mansfield game, he's been fantastic. You could not fault him on any of the goals we've conceded, really, when you look at it since that game. So
yeah, exactly.
Brilliant, and hopefully he can keep it up and
And as well, one thing with him, which I've really noticed when you sort of put him against other League Two keepers, is quite often there's back passes to his left foot, and every time he's good enough with it. Whereas like other keepers, there's a back pass to the left foot, and it doesn't look very good.
He gets it up the pitch, and he's worked on that. At the end of the day, it must be a tactic from Simo that he's told to aim for Jack Armour every time on that touchline, which makes it a challenge because it means he's likely to put quite a few of them out of play.
Yeah.
But actually, he's got better on that. He's bringing a few of them inside a little bit more as well. So I'd like to see him maybe mix it up and play some down the right as well. But then again, we haven't really got the same height, have we, for the right wing backs? That's where the problem is, I guess. But there you go. Right, well, let's do a quick roundup of League Two this weekend, Mike. The biggest winners of the Easter weekend, we said it already, haven't we? Stockport County, the only team who got a double over the weekend. They got a 1-0 win at Sutton United and a 4-0 home win over Newport County, which means they've jumped above United to 3rd place. I don't think they'll come out the top 3 before the end of the season now, I think that's them up there.
I mean, surely. They've got so much momentum behind them as well. Yeah.
So many players to pick from as well, which, most clubs just don't. That's it. Northampton just about held on to 2nd place. They lost 3-0 to Newport County, which that's a contrast, isn't it, to what Stockport did in the first game. And then they got a 2-1 home win to Gillingham. That left them 3 points behind United and Stockport, but both United and Stockport have got a much better, like 4 or 5 better goal difference than them. So this weekend, United been 3 points behind them, Every chance we could jump ahead of them, and that's I think as well, which we'll touch on in a minute, they've got a few injury issues there right now, so yeah. Stevenage, they look in danger of not just miss out on automatic promotion, they could even miss out on the playoffs, because their form since the turn of the year has been pretty appalling, hasn't it? I think in the last 14 games especially, I think they've picked up 15 points. From a possible 42, they've picked up 15 points.
That was it. That was the game that you couldn't think of, the 0-0.
Stevenage, right, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, then that would be the one,
yeah. Which looking back now, it kind of makes me rue the fact that we didn't get 3 points even more. But basically they got consecutive draws, but I mean, it's the teams they drew against is the issue for them. A 1-1 draw against Colchester and then a 1-1 draw against Hartlepool. And Hartlepool have really improved recently, improved. But yeah, it's a tough one. Bradford City, I mean, they've been in excellent form and people just aren't noticing it, are they? It's weird. They've just been like again, we talk about Stockport being like a steam James. Bradford, it's quite incredible actually, isn't it? They made it 10 games unbeaten, albeit they'll probably be disappointed with a 0-0 draw against Crawley, followed by a routine 3-1 home win over Sutton, whose own playoff hopes are looking pretty much gone now. I think it's fair to say I can't see Sutton dragging themselves up into the top 7 anymore, sadly for them. I'm just looking at here, Mike, right? So I think there's been, I'm just double quick checking this now. I think they've played 19 games since we beat them on Boxing Day when they were pretty dreadful, Bradford, right? They've only lost 2 since then. Wow.
And obviously that includes the recent 10 games with, without a defeat. And in those 10 games, they've got 5 wins and 5 draws, which is what you need, isn't it? Win, draw. And they're probably, again, if United can't get up there, I can see Bradford. I can see it being Orient, Stockport, Bradford top 3, which you wouldn't have got like not long ago. You probably would have said no chance, but
it's going to go right to the wire, isn't it?
I feel like the top, I don't think either 2nd or 3rd will be secured before the end of the season. Orient are going to win the title and they're going to win away with it. That's I've not even mentioned them in here because they're gone now, aren't they? Salford, they went ahead of Mansfield in the player front. Despite losing on Good Friday at Leyton Orient, they picked up a dramatic 3-2 win on Monday at AFC Wimbledon, which was a ridiculous game, wasn't it? They were 2-1 down in injury time. They got a penalty in the 92nd minute, missed it. The player missed the penalty, then scored a minute later to make it 2-2, and then 3 minutes after that, got the winner to make it 3-2, which is just remarkable. Mansfield, meanwhile, they beat Swindon 4-2, but then they drew 1-1 with Rochdale. So yeah, pretty much everybody's picking up, 4 points basically. There's not really much of a change. The difference is the ones who've lost out are Stevenage, essentially, in all this. We're pretty much as you were with everybody else. But Stevenage, actually, when you look at it, they're the ones who Salford, you could argue, maybe lost a point, but then they're still in the playoff hunt, so they'll be happy with that. Bit of a faltering weekend for Barrow. They are just about in touch with the playoffs. They lost 3-0 at Crewe on Good Friday, but then got a 4-0 home win over Crawley. And that leaves them, I think, 5 points outside the playoff positions. I still think it's too much for them.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't see enough teams losing for them to catch up to it. They may still well, you never know. Hopefully they won't, because we'll beat them in
yeah, well, I'm just hoping that they don't really have a lot to play for when we play them.
Yeah, and at the bottom, Rochdale, their revival under Jim McNulty continued. They got a win over Walsall, followed by a draw at Mansfield. I still think they're going to go down. I think it's just a little bit too much too late, isn't it, really? Hartlepool, they jumped out the relegation places. They got a 4-1 win at Grimsby, which is quite impressive because Grimsby are a hard team to beat. And then a 1-1 draw with Stevenage. Crawley have dropped into the bottom two after their 0-0 draw, and obviously the 4-0 defeat at Barrow. And in the nicest way possible, I hope they remain there because Steve's fussed. Just before we move on to the second half of the show, Mike, just a little thing I spotted. I was just looking through the form tables, and I normally look at the last 6 games form table, but I thought I'll have a look at the last 10 games to see how it looks. On the last 10 games form, the top 7 are actually all the current top 7, except for Barrow, who replaced Stevenage, who are at 12th in the last 10 games form table. And obviously Barrow are in 8th place, so it goes to show the teams at the top are the ones really in form. And that's why, actually, if I'm a Stevenage fan, I'd be panicking a little bit and thinking, we might miss out here, actually. There's a bit of a worry. Sorry, Barrow are 9th, I should say, not 8th. They're not, they're just behind Mansfield. So, very, very tight at the bottom. Right, we'll take a short break and then we'll be back to preview the Northampton game.
Hi, I'm Thomas Holy, and you are listening to Brunton Bugle.
Oh, we had to use Big Thomas for the halftime break there, didn't we, Mike? With his clean sheet record. Closing in on the record, of course, I should say there. So, fantastic. Right, into the second half of the show. We're going to preview the Northampton game in a minute. But while we're recording, my brother sent me over a 60-second review, but it's not him doing it. So he went to the game against Tranmere with a guy called Vincenzo from Australia.
What a name.
Places. I know. Surely the only Vincenzo who's ever going to listen to this podcast, I would have thought. Unless, I don't know, let's say a Bunyo's got a long-lost, grandfather Vincenzo who just happens to have taken interest in us after he played for us. Probably doesn't, but, because the stats show that we don't have any Italian ones, but there you go. So Vincenzo sent in a 6-second review of the game. So here's the 6-second review. I do apologise for that this isn't in the first half, but there you go.
This is Vincenzo from Australia with a 60-second review, belated, of the Carlisle vs Tranmere game. Going to the game, 14,000 people there, which was brilliant to see. After however many games with no goals scored, the drought was broken with 2 brilliant goals from Dennis. Thought Patrick had a brilliant game. His pressing was basically the instigator for everything good that happened. Played brilliantly. What else happened that day? A man collapsed next to me in the crowd. Another man thought he'd get the attention of the stewards by singing instead of just yelling it out, but whatever. What else happened? Oh, Dennis's celebration for the second goal. No, not his celebration. Yeah, it was his celebration, wasn't it? No, he's Dennis going off. One of the greats, honestly. That receding hairline of his, don't touch it. He will snap at you.
I think I know what he's referencing there when he says the hairline thing. Because when he came off, he was walking off and Jamie Devitt, who likes to make a joke about him being bald, doesn't he? About Dennis, grabbed his hair and pulled it a little bit. He did a angry, get away, mate. You're not doing that one on me. So, that's what he was on about. He did send a little amendment, though, Vincenzo, as well. So here it is.
And that's a 60-second review from probably the fan who travelled the furthest to get to that game. If anyone travelled further than me, I'd be very, very, very pissed off.
Well, there's the challenge. Did anyone travel to the game further than Vincenzo? I don't think anyone would have done. I'm trying to think what would be further. New Zealand, maybe? If someone came from there?
Depends which way you go, I suppose.
That's true. If you fly the wrong way, but yeah.
Yeah, and I heard about the guy who collapsed in the paddock. By all accounts, he was all right to come out in the second half. So
good stuff. That's what we want to hear. Great stuff. Yes, thank you, Vincenzo, for your 6-second review. Got it in there in the end, so there you go. Right, Northampton preview time, Mike. Before we go any further, I'm going to do the quiz question this week because I haven't done one for a while. So something you'll find out in a minute when we start talking about the game is that we haven't beaten Northampton for 9 games now. Quite remarkable, that, isn't it? Last time we beat them was 9 games ago. And it was a game in March 2015, which we won 2-0. Now, I want you to tell me United's starting lineup that day, if you can, and the 2 goal scorers.
I'd have no chance. So 2015, was that the year we went down or the year we'd come down?
We'd come down. So it was first. It was under Keith Curle was the manager. In fact, the Northampton manager that day, Chris Wilder.
Okay. Well, in nets, it would have been... who do we even have in goal that season? I don't even know who was our keeper that season. We would have had Archibald Henville, I'm guessing, in defence.
So no, what we'll do is we'll go goalkeeper, defenders, midfielders, and then sort of there's an attacking midfielder and a striker. Is the way it was played. It was a 4-4-1-1.
I honestly cannot think of the keeper that we had that season.
You can't think of the goalkeeper. I'll tell you who the goalkeeper was. The goalkeeper was Dan Hanford.
Okay.
And the backup on the bench was Raphael Spiegel. That's how long ago it was.
Oh, yeah, okay. Centre back, I want to say Troy Archibald Henville. And I want to say Courtney Mepp and Walter played, but Keith Curle played him in midfield a little bit that season as well. So I'm a little... But I'll say he played at centre back. So
they're your 2 centre backs. Are you going full backs?
Full backs, I would say left back, Danny Granger. Right back could literally be anyone. Who do we have right? I think Leon McSweeney was the season before, wasn't he? Right back. Yeah, I'm struggling for a right back.
Go on, just name one.
Well, he wasn't even there then, but I'll say Frank Zimek.
Okay. Right, and I'll go for your midfield 4.
Midfielders, Kyle Dempsey. In fact, I think Kyle Dempsey scored in this game. So Kyle Dempsey definitely. Jason Kennedy, I'll go for. We didn't really play wide midfielders, did we? You say?
4-4-1-1. So someone played just behind the striker.
Who played just behind the striker?
You might have named him already.
Well, I've said Dempsey. I've said...
yeah, Dempsey, basically.
Okay,
I'll give you that one already, because it's an obvious one. And you're also right, he was one of the goal scorers that day. So go on, your midfield 4, who are you going for?
So I've said...
Kennedy, haven't you, already?
Yeah, I've said Kennedy. I'll say Gary Dicker, even though he didn't really play much under Curle. Mm-hmm. This is bloody difficult. And sort of wider, I haven't got a clue. I'll just punt and I'll say Angelo Balanta, even though he wasn't here then. And I'll say Martin Smith.
Terrible at this, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you go for the striker.
Up front, I'll say Stephen Rigg. Oh no, Brad Potts would have played midfield. I'll put Brad Potts in for Martin Smith.
Okay.
And so
striker.
I'll go for Stephen Rigg up front.
Okay.
With
you mentioned Dempsey behind, didn't you? You said.
Yeah.
Who's your other goal scorer?
Is it Jason Kennedy?
Yes, you're right. Jason Kennedy was the other scorer, so he's one of the players. Right, I'm going to tell you the team and I'll put you out of misery. So Dan Hanford in nets.
Yeah.
It was Matt Young at right back.
Ah.
It was Pat Bruff at left back.
Ah.
And your two centre-halves were Sean O'Hanlon and Danny Granger. So you were right with Danny Granger being in there, but he's got the wrong position.
Yeah.
Midfield, on the right wing, David Amu. Can't believe you forgot David Amu.
Yeah.
More people. Jason Kennedy, Paul Corrie alongside Kennedy, Brad Potts on the left wing, and then Dempsey was just behind Derek Asamoah. I should say Stephen Rigg came on as a sub for Asamoah in that game, and Billy Painter came on for Paul Corrie. And also Paul Farewell came on for David Amu. The other subs were Nathan Buddle, Raphael Spiegel, Charlie Wyke, and Griffith as well.
Okay.
Remember him? Let's go back a bit. So there you go. So that was your team that day. So nice easy one for you there. Not at all challenging.
I could remember who scored though. I'm quite impressed with that.
Yeah, to be fair,
there's some useless information rattling around in there.
Exactly. Right. Okay, let's get on to previewing the Northampton game. We got behind enemy lines first. Yes, we spoke to... Well, I say we spoke to... I'm speaking to them later on after we record this, so this is kind of me guessing definitely what we're going to talk about. So I spoke to Charles from the It's All Cobblers To Me podcast. What am I going to talk about? Oh, how nervous they are about the running, and particularly in terms of the fear of repeating last season's disappointment. And also swapping a few notes on long injury list this season. So here's the chat I had with Charles. So yes, we're back once again for the Behind Enemy Lines section. Oh, we're getting to the business end of the season now, and every game's got something hanging on it. But I don't think many games this season are going to have as much hanging on as this one against Northampton. And we are here with Charles from the It's Cobblers To Me podcast. Charles, we've just had a nice long chat for your podcast to preview this weekend's game. I think we're both sort of in agreement, weren't we, that this match is huge, isn't it, for both clubs, really? I mean, it's one of those ones where, for you guys especially, 3 points, I'm not saying it guarantees you a top 3 finish, but it puts you in a really strong position coming into the final tail end of the campaign, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that at the end of the day, we can, if we win, then we will give ourselves a nice 6-point cushion between the two clubs, between ourselves. And this is, for me, I mean, the first of essentially 5 cup finals. Yeah. After we've got Saturday out of the way, we've then got, on paper, 2 seemingly easier ties. I mean, I'm not jinxing it there. We've got Sutton away and then Harrogate at home. Before we then face Bradford at home and Tranmere away. So, and as much as I know Tranmere haven't been particularly good, and they weren't particularly good against you the other
they were
day,
terrible.
It's always a hard place for us to go to theirs. And doing it on the last day of the season, I'm really hopeful that we don't have to get anything out of that game. I'm hoping it's sewn up for us at that point. So yeah, this one is really, really big if we want to make that a reality and not have to go to the final day of the season. I mean, I don't know after last season how my nerves would go if it was all on that last day. If we still had a ridiculous chance of, not finishing in the top 3 on that last day, and we had to get a result, I would be, for want of a better word, pooping myself. I don't want to go through that again.
No, well, unfortunately, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm sure you don't want to. I'm sure you're going to be regretting coming on now. I said that, but yeah, it is remarkable, isn't it? These last 5 games for all the clubs in the top 7, obviously they're going to be really tight and it's going to be exciting. But like you say, some of the games coming up. You mentioned that day you played Bradford. We play Salford at home that day as well. Leighton Orient play Stockport County. That's going to be a remarkable set of fixtures for those last few games. I mean, I'm looking through here as well. I mean, Mansfield probably got the easiest of the lot. They're playing against Harrogate Town at home. In fact, Stevenage played Grimsby at home. So those two probably hoping to get some sort of advantage that day. So that's going to be a key set of fixtures. But these ones, especially for us, you guys, like you said, you've got the Sutton game in midweek, but then we've got Stockport at home. So for us, it's a double header almost. And for you, I suppose you look at it and think, if you guys can win this game, you actually then put the onus on us to get a result against Stockport, which is for your advantage, really, in that sense. Because if we beat you, we probably look and think, okay, we can afford a point against Stockport on Tuesday night, because then we go into a game against Barrow, which is a huge game for us either way. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about last season. Then I'm sorry to bring it up, but
no, you're not.
I mean, how impressed have you been with the way your team, squad, club, however you want to put it, has just bounced back from that and almost just brushed it off as if, not as if it never happened, but as if, okay, we're just going to get it right this time? Because I was looking at it, I mean, last day of the season, now you look back at it and you think, Bristol Rovers, what a ridiculous result against Scunthorpe. You must have been quite angry about that at the time. But now you look at it, Scunthorpe are getting a second successive relegation. Maybe it's not as big a surprise. They won that game 7-0. And then to lose in the playoffs. But you've been in the top three since the 9th game of the season. Surely you're not going to mess it up now?
Oh, well, you've said it now, haven't you? Thanks, mate. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the calendar year, there was a stat put out, which is that we'd actually accumulated 83 points January to December. So for the year 2022, which is obviously a very, very good tally of points in League Two. So if you put that onto a football season, you're probably looking at it and going, yeah, that should be enough to get us automatic promotion. One of our Patreon supporters has actually been updating a table from the last 10 years. So it's the table of each season for the last 10 years, the top 7 and how many points each of those got. And every time we go past a certain point in terms of the amount of points that we've got, he circles it so we can see, right. And I think we worked out, just judging on what is the minimum number of points that, based on the last 10 years, that you need in League Two to guarantee automatic promotion. I think it's 86. So that is the highest amount that the third place team in the last 10 years has got in order to win promotion. There were a couple that were like 85, but the fourth team also had 85 points. So you realistically got to look at like 86 will guarantee it based on 10 years of history, right? We're on course to get that. It is possible to get there. Whether we need to get 86, obviously you look at the league table now, we've got 73. Orient, have won it. They were on 81 points already. Yeah. But, yourselves, Stockport, Stevenage, all on 70 points. Bradford on 68, Salford on 66. All of those teams still have a chance of making it into the automatic promotion spaces by the end of these last 5 games, right? But I actually think, judging by the way that the games are panning out, so many teams are playing each other, I don't think we'll necessarily need 86. I think we'll be okay with slightly less than that. I do think it is a testament to the way that the club has been managed and the coaching staff have set their stall out. The one issue that we had last season was squad depth. That was the big thing that held us back, essentially. That game against Barrow on the last day of the season, and what we'd been doing probably for the last 10 matches before that was literally we were only making one sub, and that was to bring Danny Rose on to essentially come on and just time waste, win free kicks up at the top end of the pitch, and essentially hold on to whatever it was that we had. We didn't have anybody else that could come on and change the game. And I'll be honest with you, it never felt like Danny Rose was able to change the game either. And yet he's gone to Stevenage and has had a fantastic season for them. Typical, really. Whereas this year, we've had a much deeper squad. And in hindsight, it's a really good job because we've got 12 players now out injured. 6-7 of those would be first team regular starters. There's more injuries within the squad. It was revealed after the game, after the win at Gillingham on Monday, that Harvey Lintott had been feeling his hamstrings, so he came off at half time. He shouldn't have played, apparently, at all. Jack Sowerby has come off at half time for the last, well, apart from Gillingham where he came on at half time, He'd come off at half-time in the 2 or 3 matches beforehand. So quite clearly it was a simple case that he can only last that long. And it was better to start him than to have him coming on late on. By the way, when he came on against Gillingham, he came on and played centre-back because we don't have anybody else to play in defence. Most of our injuries, they're all at the midfield and below, so midfield, defence and keepers. Our attack now isn't really being affected too much. Touch massive amounts of wood that I say that. We've had a very steady front four for the last however many games. So essentially Apparay in the middle and then Hoskins on the left, Kieran Bowie on the right, and Mitch Pinnock doing whatever the hell he wants to do because he can behind them. It's a testament to the way that we've been able to keep that squad that we had that did so well last season together. Out of the players that we had out of contract and we were a bit worried about losing. So Fraser Horsfall left. He went to Stockport County. Yeah. Sean McWilliams, he signed a new contract. We were ecstatic with that. He's come through our academy. He's one of the players that's out injured. You'll be probably happy to hear. He's definitely done for the rest of the season. And the other player was Liam Roberts, get his name right, who signed for Middlesbrough. So we were really happy. 1 out of 3 to keep was really good. We kept the rest of the squad together that was wanted and then brought in lots more players. And that's really been the key to the success that we've had, has been that stability and continuity, but adding to the depth of the squad, which we were so badly lacking last season.
Yeah, we said in our poll in the summer, we predicted you guys to, I'm pretty sure all 3 of us actually had you guys in the top 3. I think Mike even had you at top of the league. So yeah, just goes to show, doesn't it? And I think we all had Stockport in there, so we're kind of all glad that Stockport is sort of sneaking up in the sense of getting our predictions right. Not so much in terms of our chance to finish in top 3, but I mean, with the money they spent, they should be right up there. You'd think, wouldn't you? In terms of looking through your squad, we all agreed of all the squads in the division, it's probably the most solid looking. Outside of maybe Mitch Pinnock, who had a great season for you last season, who really impressed us. There's no massive superstars in there, is there? I think we all felt Danny Hilton was the player to take you to the next level. I still can't believe he's not scored for you. I didn't even realise that until I was checking beforehand. He just hasn't been. I think he's been injured quite a bit, hasn't he? Possibly. Other than that, and obviously Hoskins had a brilliant season. It's just a good, solid squad, isn't it? And of good performers at this level, and bringing in a good keeper in Lee Burge in the summer as well, who allegedly we were interested in. Actually, I think him and Thomas Holy were the 2 keepers we were keen on, so we got one of them. You guys obviously got Burge, and it feels like you signed very smartly in the summer as well.
Yeah, it does. To be honest, I mean, we had a tough job of replacing Liam Roberts. He was so good for us last season in goal. And we really missed him in the first leg of the playoffs. He got sent off against Barrow for a handball outside the area. Last 5 minutes to go, something like that. Danny Rose actually ended up going in net. We then didn't have him for the first leg against Mansfield, which Johnny Maxted, let a goal go in at his near post. He'd not played a game apart from in the pizza trophy all season, so rusty is probably being kind. So replacing Roberts was always going to be huge, and I'll be honest, I can't believe we've got a goalkeeper to the standard of Burge. He's been fantastic for us. At the start of the season, there wasn't a game going by where he didn't make a match-winning save. He was top draw, absolutely brilliant. He then got injured, and I think I'm right in saying that he got injured at Salford on their wonderful pitch, as we all know. And the following week we were playing Stockport away, and we signed Tom King, so from Salford. And he came in and was really good again. Like, it was like, oh, hang on a minute. We've managed to replace Burge with another top quality keeper. This is brilliant. He's 3rd choice for Wales in the recent. I think it was the qualifiers that they've just had. So he was off on international duty. Burge has come back from injury and has gone straight back into the side, and I'm ecstatic. And I'm like that, going, right, Tom King only has a contract until the end of the season. He signed on a permanent deal, but a short-term one.
Yeah.
If he signs on for next season to fight for the number 1 shirt with Burge,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what league we're in. I am going to be incredibly happy about who we've got in goal next season. It's going to be great. But yeah, the rest of the sort of the signs we make, you mentioned Danny Hilton. He was the fanfare. He was the big name signing. He's also the complete odd one out because he doesn't fit really with how we want to play the game. He's unfortunately, and I know he won't be, but if he was to come across the pod and listen to it, I'm sorry, Danny, but your legs have gone, pal. You've still got a whole bunch of skill, as he showed on Monday.
Yeah.
He didn't get the assist for the winner, but he brought the ball down from the air, laid it off, I think, to Hoskins, who then gave it to Honda Mark, who basically did what he did and smashed it in from 25 yards out. Without him bringing the ball down, that goal wouldn't have happened. He also created the space for Honda Mark to go into. So he has still got something to offer. It's just not pace. I'm sorry, Danny. So I think you're right. It's a really strong squad full of hardworking, talented, mostly young, hungry players. I've got to talk about Kieran Bowie because the guy is a sensation. He's on loan from, I'll have to get this right, Fulham. He's a Scottish under-21 international. He is going to make it big time. At the start of the season, he was good. He was fine. He scored a really good goal away at Grimsby. I think that was the second game of the season, our first away game. Really, really nice goal. He got injured for a little while around about sort of November time, but he's come back and he has just been fantastic. He is the type of player that every football fan wants in their team. First of all, he likes a fight, not physical punch. I mean, the battle against the defender. He loves it. He lives for it, but he's also got pace. He's got trickery, he's got skill, he's got an eye for goal. And the other thing that he's really good at is winding everybody else up as well. There have been so many times where he has managed to, wind up the defender to the point where the defender fouls them because it's the only thing that he's got left to do is just go through Kieran Bowie. He'll then be on the floor and the fouls are 99% of the time correct decisions. He's not diving. He's not being that horrible player. He's just winding up his opposite man to force him into going in too hard and winning the foul. He'll be on the floor and he'll gee the crowd up. He'll give them a fist pump or a cheeky wink or something that just gets us going. The lad, for the age he is wise beyond his years in terms of football. He is going to be some player, and he deserves to have scored more goals for his contributions, to be honest. If he had more goals, then he'd be a shoo-in for one of those EFL awards, I'm sure. It's just that is what is lacking for him, unfortunately. If he had that in his locker for this season, he'd definitely be up there. I'd love to sign him for next season. I don't see it. I don't see Fulham allowing him to go, not without somebody coming in with a big wad of cash for them anyway. So yeah, I think you're right. The squad that we have got is full of up and comers. That's what Jon Brady has gone for. He loves coaching, and he's really good at it. The amount of players that we've brought in and have made them better. Ali Koike, I mean, he's out injured. You won't see him on Saturday, but we took him from Bristol Rovers on a free transfer for 1 year contract. I think that was last year. Rangers apparently wanted him last January. We've managed to keep him. We made him sign another year extension. I think he's actually one of the only players that's out of contract at the end of this season. He may well leave. He has come on leaps and bounds. He came in to be our number 2, our backup reserve left back. Joseph Mills got injured quite early on at the start of last season, and he had to go in. And he's brilliant. as an attacking left back, he's been fantastic and has come on leaps and bounds. So it's one of the things that gets said by every single player that signs for us. Why did you sign for Northampton Town? Jon Brady. He will make me better.
It just comes back to what we were saying before. There's so many similarities between the clubs because the same with Simpson. Ryan Edmondson had a chance to go to a higher level for more money, and he said, I came to Carlisle because I worked with Paul Simpson in the England under age groups, and he was brilliant. I want to work with him again. And that's the response we're getting from all kinds of players who come in and talk about how great he is to work with such a good man manager as well as a coach. So you're right, and yeah, it's the same with players. It sounds like Bowie's sort of a young Joe Garner. If you remember what he was back in the day, he'll throw himself down at every opportunity he can to win free kicks, and he still does that a little bit now. He managed to injure, I think, about 3 or 4 different players over the first 3 or 4 games of his latest spell as well. And the thing is, they weren't fouls. They were all perfectly legitimate tackles. He loves to get stuck in as well, but hasn't quite got the legs he used to have, I think it's fair to say. And it'll be interesting to see what he's like, Barry, up against, if he's up, I don't know which side he goes down, but against John Mellish on the left or possibly the other side, I don't know.
He'll probably be on the right. Hoskins tends to be on the left, or at least start there.
So
they might swap over, but...
Well, he'll be up against John Mellish then, so that's interesting because he might have to do a little bit of tracking back because Mellish does like to push up a bit. And Mellish, fair play, Mellish is very difficult to wind up because, as I've said to you before, he doesn't, in the nicest way possible, our fans doubt whether he's got anything between his ears, and that's to our benefit because he just does what he wants and he doesn't get wound up. So there you go. Charles, I've taken up a lot of your time. Thank you very much. Before we finish up, we did this on your pod. What's your predictions for this weekend's game?
I'm tempted to change what my prediction is now just because I'm on your pod, but I won't. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. But like we talked about on my pod in the recording earlier on, Lee, I don't think this is going to be another one of those games like you had against Stevenage a couple of weeks ago. I think this will be a bit more open, a bit more entertaining, a bit more of both sides wanting to win it. I think we'll come out the blocks first 20 minutes. That seems to be what we're like at the moment, is that we will... And I mean, I'm not afraid to say it, but I think we might even play you off the park for 20 minutes. And then you'll come back into the game. That seems to be the pattern. Every game that we play over the last few weeks has been... We will come out firing for 20 minutes. You'll suddenly make a slight tweak to your formation or your tactics that suddenly brings you back into the game, and it evens itself out. And then we get a bit tired in the last 15, 20. That'll be, for us, we need to score in the first 20 because otherwise I'd be worried about you scoring in the last 20. So I'll go for a 1-1 draw because I think that will be a happy compromise from my point of view. I'd love to get 3 points because of the aforementioned gap that will open up for us. But if we took a point and then went to the next 2 games, Sutton and then Harrogate at home, and won those, I'd be looking back at a very happy 7 points. So, 1-1 draw for me, mate.
It's interesting you mentioned about that good start because we're often better when we don't have the ball. Like I said, against Tranmere, they had 67% possession. We only had 36, and I think we had 15 shots and 8 on target, and they had 8 and 1 on target. So it quite often works out better for us not having the ball. So that could make for quite an interesting contest. Charles, thanks for your time, and all the best for the rest of the season. Do I mean that? Probably not after this weekend's game.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, big thanks to Charles for giving up his time to speak to us. You'll probably hear us on his podcast as well, so give that a listen out too. Let's get on to it, Mike. Yes, this weekend's game, 3 p.m. kickoff at Brunton Park. Rebecca Welsh is the referee from County Durham. It's her 3rd season as an EFL referee. You might remember famously she was the first ever Football League referee, wasn't she? Who was a female. So that was a really good achievement for her. This season, she's taken charge of 18 games so far, handing out 58 yellows and no red cards. A lot calmer. In fact, I don't think she's actually, since she became a Football League referee, I don't think she's handed out a single red card in a league fixture.
Nailed on a red card this week.
100%. I'm glad I'm saying this deliberately. She handed out 1 red card, I think, in an FA Cup game involving, I think, maybe Birmingham and Plymouth or something like that. But yeah, she's not handed out any red cards in the EFL fixtures, which is interesting. She's actually taken charge of a lot more games than that, says this season, because she is a referee in the women's game, and she's actually a FIFA standard official in that. One of the games she recently took charge of was the PSG versus Wolfsburg quarter-final in the Women's Champion League. So very high standard official, which is good to see, and which is nice actually, because that recent game against Stevenage, wasn't it, where we got just an absolute shock of a ref. So hopefully she'll be very good in terms of taking charge of this one. Jumping ahead a little bit here to the weekend preview that we're going to do of the Stockport game, Mike. Do you know who's going to be referee for the Stockport game?
No, go on.
Thomas Parsons.
No.
Yes.
Oh, God.
That is Thomas Parsons, who, for those fans thinking, why does that name sound familiar? He refereed the Leyton Orient game earlier this season.
I genuinely thought he would never ref us again.
This season, at the very least. I thought there's no way he's refereeing us again this season after what happened.
Yeah.
But there's the kind of part of me in the back of my head thinking he's going to be a bit rattled and think, I got an absolute rollicking for what happened at the game at Brunton Park, so maybe I'll get it right this time. Maybe I'll start handing a few nice things out to Carlisle. That's what we're hoping for.
I hope so.
Well, you got to hope, haven't you? Last season, she handed out 53 yellows and 1 red card in 17 games. Also, that red card, as I mentioned, was in an FA Cup game. And the last United game she took charge of was the 3-0 defeat at Harrogate last season. Not a game that we really want to talk about anymore, do we? So there you go. Head-to-head record, 47th meeting of the two sides. United have won 13, 14 have been draws, and the Cobblers have won 19. Northampton Town, Mike. Kind of where we're expecting to be this season, aren't they, really?
Yeah, I think that they were my tip to win the league in the pre-season preview. Yeah. But, yeah, they're near enough up there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Certainly at the right end of the table.
I have a feeling that I think all three of us put Northampton in the top 3, and I think all three of us put Stockport in the top 3. So at the moment, our predictions aren't looking that stupid. I think fairly sure we all thought Orient would do okay as well, I think.
I don't think any of us predicted Orient or Stevenage top 3.
No, I think me and Dan definitely predicted them as dark horses. I think that unexpected teams to do well, so we're happy with that. But yeah, as you say, mate, it was kind of expected that we're going to be up there. But the easiest thing to happen for them would have been to struggle, wouldn't it? Because they had a lot of disappointment towards the end of the season, didn't they? Where they thought they'd done enough at Barrow, and then Bristol Rovers go and get the most ridiculous final day of the season result you've ever seen against Scunthorpe. It's funny in hindsight, people are all saying, to disgrace what Scunthorpe have done on the final day, blah, blah, blah. They've just been relegated to the National League North, second consecutive relegation. They're a club that was a mess, so them losing that game 7-0 is not actually that much of a surprise now, is it, really?
Yeah, exactly.
No comfort at all to Northampton fans listening to that, I'm sure. But yeah, so the disappointment of that, and then to lose in the playoffs as well, having finished 4th, that must have been like a proper gut punch. And the easiest thing there is to sort of struggle a bit the season after. We had that, didn't we, when we lost against Exeter in the playoffs? We didn't really perform the following season that well, did we? But Northampton, the stats speak for themselves. They've been in the top 3 since the 9th game of the season.
Yeah, which is incredible, really, to sort of be that consistent. Because, well, and Orient this season, they've been constantly in the top 3 because, throughout the season there's normally a bit ups and downs, but yeah, they've been pretty consistent. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, it's strange. Like, it's almost like we just haven't noticed them. We've kind of just sort of accepted, they're up there. They're up there, they're staying up there. No one's been like, they're going to drop out. It's kind of been like just the way it is, isn't it? So, yeah, it's brilliant season they're having. When you look at the work they've done in January, they didn't lose a single player. Every single player stayed. They've added 6 players in. Some interesting, unusual signings there, isn't there? I think the loan signings in particular, there's a couple of interesting ones there. Tete Yengi from Ipswich, but DiMaggio Wright Phillips. Now that name sounds familiar, doesn't it, Mike?
How many Wright Phillipses are there?
Well, this is obviously Sean's son.
Yeah, that's Ian's grandson.
Exactly, which is quite remarkable, isn't it, when you think about it? It makes me feel older because I can remember that famous game, Man U Arsenal, where Wright and Schmeichel burst the ball when they both went to kick it, didn't they? The fights they used to have on the pitch is ridiculous. But he's not featured that much. I think there's a big expectation for him, but he's not been quite as big a star as I think they'd hoped. I think he's been used a bit sparingly from the bench. Tom King from Salford's a decent backup goalkeeper to bring in, though, isn't it? When you're in the running, and they've got a very good keeper in Lee Burge that they signed in the summer, who we were reported he was one of our potential targets alongside Holy in the summer. But yeah, I think Will Hondermark from Barnsley is the one that's really impressed, and he scored a wonder goal for them at the weekend against Gillingham. Like, if you've seen this goal,
No.
brilliant strike from about 25 yards on the angle, right into the top corner. Really, really good goal. What exactly what they needed in that game. But then there's a couple of interesting ones. Paul Askew, who was unattached. I think he was at Wimbledon last season. He's signed for the remaining few weeks of the season. And David Norman Jr. from Cavalry FC in Canada, he signed on a free transfer as well, a former Vancouver Whitecaps player. I just look at this squad, and I think actually of all the squads I see in the division, it's probably the most consistent looking and the most solid looking, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. And we said that in pre-season as well.
Yeah, but I think we all looked and thought, well, actually, it's quite good. I mean, they lost Fraser Horsford in the summer, and that must have been a big blow, him going to Stockport. But actually, they've still been pretty solid defensively, haven't they, when you look at it?
Well, I think it was John Guthrie was in League Two Team of the Year last season, I think. And I don't think Horsford was. So I think keeping hold of Guthrie was important for them.
Yeah.
And, obviously they added Danny Hilton in the summer, but he hasn't done as well as I maybe thought he would.
No, I think all of us thought he would be one of the best players. I think we all in that prediction were talking about, that's a signing that says, yep, they're intent on going up this season. He's played 16 times, and I don't want to say this, but he hasn't scored yet. I apologise profusely in advance for the goal that he's going to score at the weekend. Now, as a result of me saying that, but yeah, it's a very odd one, isn't it? Really, with him, I think he's had bad injuries. I think that's one of the problems, and at his age, it's going to take him a bit longer to recover from an injury as well. But I imagine now he's fit, they're hoping he can maybe make an impact in the run-in as well and be that kind of experienced head that they need in there. And I'm no doubt he's going to be acting the shit house this weekend. He always does against us. It's frustrating. And he's a great player, to be fair. There's no doubt about that. A really good striker at this level. But interesting to see how he does. Sam Hoskins is the big star in there, you'd think, isn't he? With 20 goals from the wing this season, really impressive. I mean, I think the way that they play, the central striker isn't really the main man in the team anyway.
No.
It's kind of, they've got players coming off him. You've got Mitch Pinnock, who was brilliant last season. I was really, really impressed with him. He's really impressed. And it kind of just feels like the players play off the central striker, don't they? And as a result, Hoskins has really benefited for that. He's having the season of his life, essentially. And it's weird. We're looking through it, and they let a lot of players go this time, and they only lost 3 players otherwise, which were Paul Lewis back to Tranmere, and that's not worked out for him. Liam Roberts, who went to Middlesbrough, keepers, do really well. They're going to go to a high level. And as you mentioned, Hawthorne, because they've been able to keep hold of what they really wanted, they've just added quality around it, haven't they? And that's really what's pushed them up there. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, other ones, Sam Sherring from Bournemouth as well as another good player as well. I think he can make it a big impact. And Ben Fox, actually, from Grimsby is one we haven't mentioned. And it's interesting, the Grimsby fans weren't that sure in him, I think, like last season. They felt like he only turned it on for the playoff games, but those playoff games I saw for Grimsby, he looked one of the best players on the pitch in each game. So, yeah.
And I was just going to say, we're going to mention as well Jack Sowerby.
Yes, Jack Sowerby, obviously, he's been there for a few years now. He's a really big popular, but I think he signed a new contract earlier this season. He's someone they really like. And I think actually the weekend he had to play the second half at centre-back against Gillingham, because they are, as we'll get on to now, I probably will have discussed this by now. You'll have heard it with the chat with Charles. They've had they're basically getting the number of injuries that we had for most of the season for the running. And as a result, they're a bit struggling defensively in terms of the players they got in there. It was is it Harvey Linnett? I think it is. Just double check. Harvey Linnett. He came off at half time against Gillingham, and it was Sowerby that replaced him. And I think Sowerby had to slot in at centre back basically for the rest of the game. So they're kind of like a little bit down to the bare bones, I think, in terms of defensive players especially. So there's kind of a feeling like if we can get at them at this weekend, we could get something from this game. There's every chance we can get the results. So it's kind of ones where you look and you think, I'm saying all this, and when you get onto the overall form, Northampton are currently second in the last 6 games form table. With a record of 1-1-1, drawn, lost, 1. Obviously that loss being the 3-0 loss at Newport County. United are currently actually 15th in the form table now with a record of drawn, lost, 1 drawn. So it's weird. We've only lost 2 of our last 6, but it's just because we're not getting the goals at the moment. There's only been 4 goals in our games since since then. In fact, no, it's 3 goals, isn't it, actually? No, sorry, it's 4, because we scored 2 against Tranmere. Apologies. Yeah, so there's one for you as well, Mike, looking ahead again. Who's top of the form table right now?
Is it Orient?
No, Stockport.
No, Stockport. Of course, it's Stockport.
So the next 2 games, we've basically got second and first in the form table.
Yeah.
If we can get results in those games, it'll be incredible. I think generally that'll be like, yeah, we are contenders now for that.
Yeah,
that top spot. It's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. So well, as I mentioned earlier, we've only beat them once in the last 9 meetings, and that was that 2-1 win. The last one before that, was the 2-1 win last season. I should apologise. I said earlier we haven't beat them in the last 9. We beat them once in the last 9 is what I meant. So that's going to sound really stupid. Now people listening back and listening to that bit are going to go, but we beat them 2-1 last season. So apologies, I've written it down wrong here. That's my fault. I do apologise. Well, let's talk about United then, Mike. Yeah, injury-wise, obviously it looks like Jack Ellis is probably out for the season now, doesn't it? We know obviously that Morgan Feeney and Finn Backett. It sounds like one of them might be back. I think was it Feeney maybe would be back possibly for the playoffs if we really needed him.
Yeah,
I can't remember which one. It might be back, might be the one, but one of them I think possibly. You'd imagine if Ellis has done his hamstring, that's probably is him out for the season now. Annoyingly, we might have Brennan Dickinson back as an option soon for the playoffs. Possibly, it's getting close. Toby's not going to be back for the end of the season, is he? Taylor Charters is pretty much up to full speed now, so hopefully maybe for the midweek game next week he might be back. We're recording this well before Simo's thing. On Wednesday we're recording this, so we don't know. This is a huge game, isn't it, Mike?
Massive, yeah. And I kind of think that Northampton just won't want to lose.
Yeah.
And there might be a little bit of a repeat of kind of the Stevenage game a bit, but hopefully, we're more prepared for it this time. And given their injuries, we can really put a dent in their promotion hopes while, giving our promotion hopes a bit of a kick.
I think you're right, because actually when you look at it, we're obviously playing at the weekend. If they draw, I don't think anyone can go ahead of them, whatever happens. I don't think, actually, when you look at the table. I'm just trying to load it up now because it's all disappeared on my screen. So basically, if they draw, they remain in second place now. Yes, potentially Stevenage can catch up on them with the games in hand, but they'll be happy with that because they look at their next couple of games. They're away at Sutton and they're home against Harrogate. Imagine Harrogate, they'll be looking to get something because then actually after that they've got Bradford at home, which looks a huge game as well because Bradford by that point might be closing them down. And then the final day of the season, they're away at Tranmere, a game they'd probably be looking to win, I'd imagine. But then, we repeat to last season, they probably want it wrapped up before then, don't they? So I think you're right. I'm not saying they're going to come and play for a draw, but I think they're going to be smart enough to know, let's not take any unnecessary risks here.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure we're potentially still in it come the end of the game. Because if we beat them, suddenly they're like, right, we need to get results against Sutton and Harrogate now.
Yeah.
Before we play Bradford. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one for them. Team selection this one, Mike. What are we going for? So, obviously, there's got to be a change at right wing back. Senior seems the obvious choice to me.
Yeah, I think I'd go with that.
I think Gibson's just too much of a risk against a side as good as Northampton, especially with someone like Mitch Pinnock playing down the left for them. I think you've got to get a hold of him early. I know he can probably play on the right as well, so it might even be Hoskins. So you probably want somebody who's more of a defender there. There is one other option possibly, though, isn't there? Because obviously Ben Barkley's not going to be able to play against Stockport in the midweek, centre back. You could put Ben Barkley at right wing back, which also adds a little bit of height to that position as well, in that sense, going forward in terms of long balls and stuff like that, and put Whelan in at right centre back.
I would just go with Senior personally.
You'd stick with Senior.
Yeah,
I think I'd agree with you, but I just looking out there, I think obviously Barkley's played a couple of games at right wing back this season. One of the games he looked very good, the other didn't look quite as comfortable, but it's an option. It's a potential option. Midfield, the same three play both games against in the games over Easter. Does it need to be freshened up? I feel like it does now. I feel like I'd like to see. I think McCalman's a great player. I really do, and I'd love to see him with us next season. But I feel like we're missing just a little bit of something, a little bit of a nous in there. That's what. The question is whether you want to put Gibson in there so you can switch to a 3-4-3 at times, or do you want to put Devitt in there just for someone who's a bit better on the ball?
I'd maybe go with Devitt. Yeah, I think he looked really good off the bench against Tranmere. Against Walsall, he didn't really get the ball enough.
But a couple of times he did. He played it really well, didn't he? So.
Yeah. And it's a big game, and you need experienced heads in big games as well.
Yeah. Attack, stick again with Dennis and Patrick.
I would, yeah. I think as well if they've got a bit of a makeshift defence, I think Dennis will find little holes in there that he can get in.
And Patrick, if you can get him on the ball and get him running at play, especially if you've got a good crowd behind him, you can really make an impact. In terms of subs, obviously if Senior comes in, do you change anything on the subs bench? Stick where it is. I think you stick at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much stick with what we've got.
J.K. Gone still missing out at the moment. There's been no real mention of it. I don't know if there's an issue there or something, but it's a very strange one, doesn't it? But
I don't know. But Edmondson is a cracking player to bring it off the bench, and Garner is as well.
Yeah, exactly. Right, predictions time, Mike. So the points totals have gone up 1 for each of us because we all predicted Dennis to score against Tranmere. And obviously, once again, none of us went for a 0-0 draw. I think one of us should maybe try that for the Stockport game and see what happens. You know what I mean? Right, what are you going for?
I'm going to go for a 2-0 win, and I'll go for Dennis and Patrick.
Dennis and Patrick, okay. I'm going to go... I still think Northampton will score. I'm going to go 2-1, and I'm going to go for goals for Dennis and... Huntington. Dennis and Huntington. Right, here's Dan's prediction.
I'm going to go for a solid 3-1 home win with goals from Christian Dennis, Owen Moxon and Paul Huntington.
Oh, for crying out loud. 2 of my goal scorers there. So I'm not gaining anything unless it's a 2-1 win. I'm not gaining it. I'm not pushing ahead. What a swine. There you go. Obviously, he didn't know what I was going to pick, so just look at the draw, I guess, there. Anyway. Right, X-File section, Mike. Plenty to cover over the weekend, wasn't there? It looked like it was going to be quiet at one point, because Dan had only picked out 3 things. But then, obviously, the games are sort of split. The Scottish games are played on the Saturday, aren't they? So, a bit of a mix there. First up, the Good Friday and weekend games. Regan Slater, he scored a goal for Hull City in their, quite frankly, remarkable 4-4 draw at Sunderland on Good Friday. Did you see any of this?
No.
What an utterly ridiculous game. It was on live on Sky. I saw bits of it later on, but absolutely ridiculous. Don't really hear from Regan much these days, do we? So nice to hear a goal from him. Jack Stratton, he got his first goal for Stockport County in their 1-0 win at Sutton United.
I'm glad that he's got his first goal, because if we were playing against Stockport and he hadn't scored for them yet.
Well, you say that. We'll wait till we talk about the Easter Monday games. Jack Bridge, he's getting a few at the moment. He scored for Southend United as they beat Maidstone United 2-0. James Tavernier, he scored twice for Rangers, but they lost the Old Firm derby 3-2. I know that'll divide quite a lot of our fan base, because I'm sure there's plenty who like Celtic and plenty who like Rangers. So I'm guessing that's possibly the reason why Dan's not on this week, maybe. He didn't want to talk about that because he had to mention it in the XL section. But no, I'm pretty sure he's gutted. But there you go. Yes, Luis Alexandra, he scored for the winner. It was a late winner as well for South Shields in their 3-2 victory over at Nantwich Town. And we mentioned, obviously, earlier we were going to talk about the Workington game again, but David Symington scored 4 times in Workington's 5-0 win over fellow playoff hopefuls Witton Albion. I mean, that's a big confidence booster for Workington, isn't it, going into those playoffs? To beat one of the teams that, I don't know if they've dropped out of it now potentially, but, to beat the team that's in and around you there, really, really big positive for them. So, fantastic stuff. Right, on to the Easter Monday games. Brad Potts. Now, he got a very, very dramatic late goal for Preston as they beat Reading 2-1 thanks to his 92nd minute winner. And they're now just on the cusp of the playoffs in the Championship. It's really interesting. The Championship playoffs, potentially, you could have Luton, Millwall and Preston all in there with Middlesbrough. That'd be nice to have a new team in there, wouldn't it, really?
Well, I noticed as well, a little fact, is if Luton go up, Perry Ruddock Mpanzu, who plays for them, could be the first player to play in all 4 of the top English divisions. No, all 5.
All 5, yes, including the National League,
for the same club.
Yes, exactly, which would be Brilliant, absolutely brilliant if that could happen, but there you go. Ryan Bowman, he was sent off for Shrewsbury Town as they lost 2-1 at Barnsley. I don't know if this was one of those after the final whistle ones, because it was the 99th minute red card in the 2-1 defeat, so it might have been one of those ones where he said something to the ref after the game. Andy Cook, he scored again for Bradford in their 3-1 win over Sutton United. He's going to be League 2 top scorer now, isn't he, I think, sadly. I think Deno's chances have gone on that one. I mentioned keep an eye out for this one, Mike. Jack Stretton, he made it 2 goals in 2 games as he helped Stockport to a 4-0 win over Newport County. You know what's going to happen. Hayden White, we've mentioned earlier, he was sent off against United. This was the most dramatic moment of the weekend, though, wasn't it? Kedwin Scott, he missed a chance to equalise with the last kick of the game as Ben Foster saved his penalty in Notts County's 3-2 defeat at Wrexham.
I have to say, though, is I saw this on Ben Foster's YouTube channel, and he had like cameras all over the ground. The limbs for that penalty save were not what I thought they'd be.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a little bit more mental, but it was kind of like a little bit tame, wasn't it? It was just a bit of a shock.
I guess there's a lot of bandwagon jumper honors there, so they don't really really get it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Promotion and relegation. It's got to the stage of the season where we can start covering these bits. Luis Alessandra, Gary Liddell, Martin Smith and Dylan Morse were all promoted to the National League North with South Shields. Fantastic stuff. All ex-Blues there. Dylan Morse was obviously a youth. Did Dylan Morse get a pro deal? I can't remember if he did. I think he might have done.
Don't think so.
I'm not 100% on that one. But yeah, so fantastic news for all 4 of those. But Richie Bennett was relegated to the National League North during his loan spell at Scunthorpe United. It's a bit harsh to say that he's been relegated, though, because he's going back to Barrow at the end of the season. So there you go. In terms of the other news, obviously mentioned Andy Cook got nominated for EFL League 2 Player of the Season, but also Mark Ellis. He hit the 500 appearance milestone for his career while playing for York City over the weekend. So fantastic news from Mark. Well done to him.
Yeah.
And that's it, Mike, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
Nothing else to cover this week. I said we were going to keep it short. I've not even added in the opposition chat yet, and it's on 88 minutes. So I do apologise, everyone. But that's what happens when you have to cover 2 games. Hopefully this weekend won't be too bad, because we'll only be reviewing the Northampton game, depending on what happens in it, obviously, and we'll be previewing the Stockport game. So there you go. But yeah, Mike, only one more game left for you this season, isn't there? Unless we get to the playoff final.
Yeah, just the Salford home game. That's it for me.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling we won't have wrapped up promotion by then as well. Either,
no, it's not going to happen, is it?
It's going down to the last game.
Of course it is.
Absolutely no doubt about that. So hopefully we're still in contention at that point. That's the dream, isn't it? Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks, Mike, for joining me. And up the Blues.
Up the Blues.